Welcome to the Healthy Mama podcast. I'm so excited to introduce a new guest to you. She is amazing, and you're going to want to listen to this whole thing because we are going to be talking about hormones. We're going to be talking about perimenopause. We're going to be talking about stubborn weight and everything that goes along with it. And Terry has an amazing story that she's going to share with you that may give you a little bit of hope because sometimes at this point in life, we can feel a little bit out of touch with our body. We can feel like things are hopeless. And I think Terry here is going to give us some hope. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Lucy. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. And it's a pleasure to have you here, especially with what you're about to tell us.
I was born in Eastern Europe. I came to this country at about 13 years old, and my whole background was about study hard, work really hard. We didn't have a lot of priority for going to the gym and any kind of special type of nutrition. We just ate whatever was the cuisine, which was Armenian in my case, or Mediterranean. And that's how I grew up. I was never overweight. I was actually underweight for the majority of my life. And so, yeah, I just did whatever. I didn't have any education in nutrition or fitness. I never really went to the gym. I didn't know what a dumbbell was. And that's just the way things were. Until I turned about 37 and I found myself at 210 pounds after having two children. I'm 5'3". And a lot of really weird things started happening to me. So I had severe pains twice, ended up in the hospital with that. It turned out I was diagnosed with anxiety, given a pill, sent home, and told to follow up with a cardiologist. And at that point, they couldn't find anything except a very small heart murmur. And yeah, and then, pre-diabetes was creeping up on me, or diabetes really was creeping up on me. I was having all kinds of weird things like ovarian cysts and dizziness all the time, and major fatigue. My hair was falling out. I smelled terrible all the time. I had no idea what was happening. Okay. The only thing I could point to was the 80 pounds of extra weight that I was carrying. And I decided one day, okay, that's it. This is enough. I'm actually going to try and do this for real. I'm going to try and drop the weight because all of my previous attempts, although I would lose a little, I would gain twice that as soon as I stopped the quote unquote diet, right? And so I began, and eventually a lot of things were revealed to me that shocked me.
That was amazing. And I think a lot of people can really relate to this story. All the things that you just talked about, the weight, the heart murmur and the anxiety and the dizziness and the fatigue and your hair. I mean, these are things that the women listening are, a lot of them are really struggling with and probably getting similar answers like when you went to your doctor and they just give you a pill and send you home and you're not really getting to the root. So then what ended up happening after, you know, all happening, all of these things are accumulating now. So what was the turning point for you?
So about 37, 38, which is when all of this started happening, and it happened very quickly, all at the same time. Unbeknownst to me, I had entered perimenopause, and things were really, really intense. And that's what really triggered me into starting to strength train, starting to understand the value of protein on a daily basis, starting to think about sleep and how to get the most out of my 8 hours or however many I had. I really had to deep dive into my stress level. So at the time I was running a company, that was a marketing agency. It is a marketing agency. And I worked 16-hour days and I had children. I traveled a lot and I was just always overwhelmed, just constantly stressed, overwhelmed. I was just running on fumes, essentially. I wasn't eating right. I wasn't taking care of my body. I was very stressed. I had a lot of responsibilities at home and at work. And I really had to stop. I had to stop, just completely stop and evaluate what in the heck am I doing? Right? All of this is creating a perfect storm of a very unhealthy result. What I believed at the time, if I continued, that I would end up having a real heart attack because I had that in my family history. So my
Mm.
grandmother had my grandmother had diabetes, and my grandfather died from his fourth heart attack. So he had three before the fourth one got him. And so I knew that this path was not going to lead anywhere good. And I didn't like how I looked, right? I felt very self-conscious with the extra 80 pounds. And so mentally, I wasn't doing well. Physically, I wasn't doing well. Emotionally, I was just coping by eating jars and jars of Nutella and pints of ice cream every night and whatever else came into my view because I was just really miserable. And so I decided that at that time I was going to start to strength train, figure out my nutrition, figure out my sleep, figure out my hydration, and all of these things surrounding wellness. So I hired a coach in
Mm.
2019, and she helped me put all the pieces together. And when I saw the results, when I experienced, I didn't even see I experienced very dramatic changes in my well-being, my weight, my sleep, my overall energy levels. Everything started changing very slowly, but inevitably it was happening. And then by 42, my period left the building,
Oh.
never came back. And that's when I knew that the last 5 years I was in perimenopause, or was going into menopause.
Mm. Mm. Amazing. That is so young, right? The average age for menopause normally is 51, and you were experiencing it. And, people go through perimenopause in their 40s, but you started so early and you didn't even know it. And I think a lot of people, they tend to think of menopause and perimenopause, oh, that's like later, and they don't always recognize the signs. So, what would you say then are the signs that the ladies listening might be looking for?
So mid 30s is actually not early. A very large number of women do enter perimenopause in their mid 30s. It's just not as discussed, and it's not out there in the media. It's not the mainstream narrative. I believe the same thing. I thought that menopause or perimenopause begins in your 50s. And so I was so clueless when this stuff was happening to me that it didn't even cross my mind. Can you imagine? It didn't even cross my mind that that's what I could be going through.
Or your doctor's mind, apparently.
No, it just wasn't. And of course, this is now almost 12 years ago.
Yep.
So there wasn't as much information, there wasn't as much social media attention put towards this. And I mean, imagine realizing you're in perimenopause when it's over.
Mm.
So I didn't get my period for about 12 months. And in the very beginning, the first the first 4 months I didn't get it, I thought I was pregnant.
Mm.
That's how ignorant I was on the subject. And yeah, so some of the things that were happening were extreme overwhelm.
Mm.
So just normal daily things that I could handle before, I couldn't handle them. So work, family, all normal responsibilities started feeling um, very stressful. I did not want to socialize. That was another interesting symptom that I learned 12 years later, that it could be a sign that you're in the middle of something. I just didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to do anything, right? I wanted to be kind of left alone for a bit, which is it's not characteristic for me. I love people. I love going places, doing things. I didn't want to do any of that. So a
Mm.
very dramatic personality change. I and this is pretty funny. So because I had started my health journey because I thought I was having a heart attack too,
Hmm.
I was lifting weights and was being more active. So when the hot flashes would come on, I would be laying in bed about to go to sleep and the hot flash would come out. And in my mind, I thought, oh, I'm burning fat.
Oh, geez. Oh.
Yes. And so I was happy about it.
Wow.
Yeah. It's funny and when I think about it now, looking back, but yeah, it's also an example of how your mindset can set the stage for whether you're really miserable or you're happy about it because I didn't know what a hot flash was and I did never cross my mind that I could be having one at 40. And so when I would get them, I was like, "Oh, yay, bravo. We're our metabolism is firing."
Well, speaking of mindset, how did you get your mindset in the right place for making these major changes in your life?
I was terrified that the third visit to ER was going to be a real heart attack because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't
Mhm.
realize it was hormonal. And so when the anxiety attacks would hit, they were so severe and I was having so much chest pain. It was probably a panic attack, really,
Mhm.
because my body was going through a lot of changes, but I wasn't fueling properly. I didn't eat the right foods. I was probably very undernourished, but I was overweight.
Mhm.
So imagine undernourished, meaning I wasn't eating real food. I was eating a lot of junk and, chocolate and sugar and alcohol, a lot of alcohol, and not really any protein. And so my body was requiring the right materials to go through perimenopause, and I was not providing that. So it was hitting the panic button, which
Mhm.
was in my case, extreme anxiety and panic attacks, hair loss, all kinds of things were happening. So,
Yeah. So, and it's not super common. I feel like it's not common enough for people to reach out for help. What led you to doing that?
well, I wanted to lose weight because I thought the problems I was having were related to being obese.
Mhm.
And of course, they were. I was obese on top of everything else, and I was going through perimenopause, but I didn't know that. And so I thought that losing weight was going to help me get rid of all these things that were happening. And I thought the reason they were happening was because I was so overweight, which in a sense, it that was correct.
Right.
My lifestyle was not conducive to meeting the change, meeting perimenopause in a good place. So I was in the process of fixing my lifestyle because I literally thought I'm gonna I'm gonna just drop one day and there's gonna be really no explanation other than I didn't do my job.
Right. Right. Okay. So you had some motivation here to reach out and get the help that you needed. And your mindset was kind of like, well, I need to lose weight. So you reached out in order to get the weight to come off. So what did you do first? I know you mentioned you first started to lift weights. And So what did you do first? And also like what kept you going? Because I don't think that you just jumped into another diet because it sounds like you'd had some diets, you've done some diets. They, you lose some, you gain it back and go back and forth. But this sounds like you figured out how to make this long lasting. So how did you do that and what did you start with?
So I jumped into the deep end. I started everything all at the same time. I
Wow.
started weight training and I started a macro-based nutrition plan, right?
Hmm.
And so every diet out there is its fundamental and its core principle is to reduce caloric intake, right? That's the fundamental way you're going to drop body fat, body weight, period.
Hmm.
Now, what kind of weight you're going to drop depends on whether you're weight training or not. So if when you're in a caloric deficit and you're not weight training, you're going to drop both muscle and body fat. If you are in a caloric deficit, but you're eating sufficient amounts of protein, you're most likely going to drop and weight training, you're
Hmm.
going to drop more body fat, which is what you want, and develop muscle. So you're going to gain a little bit of weight and muscle mass, and you're going to lose body fat. And so that's what I started doing. And I started seeing changes almost instantly, right? So I dropped about 7 pounds the first month. And I continued that type of progress until I got all the weight off. I got myself down to about 128 pounds, all the way from 210.
Wow.
Yes. And I learned through macro-based nutrition that I don't need to cut out entire food groups, right? So a lot of the diets out there, that's their foundational principle
Mm.
is in order to achieve a caloric deficit, we need to cut out entire food groups because it's the easiest way to accomplish it, right? So if I cut out all bread,
Hmm.
I am going to automatically create a deficit in my day. If I cut out all sugar, same thing. If I cut out all carbs, same thing. But macro-based nutrition does not actually cut any food out. It works around, the principle around it is that you can eat whatever you like as long as it meets the budget you have per meal, right? So not even per day. It got very granular. So each meal had to hit the right budget, meaning
Hmm.
this many grams of protein, this many grams of carbs, this many grams of fat. That's it. No more, no less. And when you try to fit in a jar of Nutella into that, the balance is off. So you realize, oh, so you mean like a normal portion of Nutella is only 10 grams, not the entire jar? And I could probably have that if I pair it with a high protein yogurt and a rice cake. I can probably have about 10 grams of Nutella on top of my rice cake and eat that with my yogurt. And that's a good meal. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm.
So I learned a lot about nutrition, what the ingredients are of all the different foods, how to structure a meal that's balanced, meaning it has the right amount of protein, carbs, and fat, how to eat throughout the day, right? So I didn't just eat once or twice and then binge on Cheetos at the end of the day. I had to eat 5 complete balanced meals. And that was a lot for me. I could not eat all of that.
That is a lot for a lot of women. I think they would wonder about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was full the majority of the day. I was crowding out sugar in a sense.
Hmm.
I was so full by eating real food. My cravings were not as severe because I was not malnourished, right? So
Hmm.
I wouldn't starve myself all day and then have a big binge session at the end of the night because I'm starving, right?
Exactly.
But that's what most of us do, and that's what I used to do. And
Yeah.
so it teaches the body that we're inconsistent. We have no idea, and the body's in there thinking like, "Whoa, I have no idea when the heck she's gonna eat next because she just didn't eat for 16 hours. And so let me pack on the calories in case she stars me again tomorrow. But then tomorrow you eat 3,000 calories, not 800, and it's just all over the place, right? And so
Mm.
you're creating an environment of inconsistency and kind of yo-yo, like mini yo-yo food intake, and that starts to mess with our hormones and all kinds of things. So yeah.
And it sounds like you also had to shift a little bit from that that diet low calorie mindset too in order to be able to get all this food in. And was that difficult or did that come easily for you?
I was petrified
Hmm.
because I initially thought I was going to gain weight by eating
Hmm.
all the food. So that I was convinced. I said, wow, like I'm just gonna get bigger and bigger by doing this other thing now, because every time I did a diet, I'd get bigger. So I had all these thoughts in my mind about, well, I've done things and nothing's ever worked, and nothing really works for me, and I'm special like that. No diet's ever gonna work. I'm just doomed, right? So I had that kind of mindset. And this is the benefit of having a coach, right? So I would say these things, and the coach would say, let me worry about that. You just do what's in the plan, and let me worry about the result, right? If that's my job. So outsource all of
Yeah,
those thoughts
love it.
somewhere else and just focus on doing doing the things on a day-to-day basis, maybe sometimes even hour to hour, right? And so when you do have a professional that you're working with and they have the experience and they've helped many other women achieve
Mhm.
their goals, you have to trust your decision at the very beginning of hiring this person to help you get to your goals and not overthink things and not, use your logic based on previous experiences. Because guess what? Most of us don't know what the heck we were doing. And it takes a lot of years to figure out what's working, what doesn't work, what the right approach is, what the right strategy is. And we just don't spend any time in our professional and personal lives analyzing the macro nutrition content of broccoli, cauliflower, and chicken.
Mhm.
We just don't, right? And so when you have somebody next to you that knows what they're doing and they tell you this is what you need to do, and if you do this long enough, you will see results. And if you don't, then that's on me. That's my fault, right? It's the coach's fault. As
Mm.
long as you do all the things, that kind of helped me. It helped me put down all of those thoughts I was having about, well, this is not going to work. Because I was like, well, all right, I'm just going to do what she says. And if it doesn't work, it's not my fault.
Right. Okay. So that really relieved a lot of the pressure from you. And so what message do you want people, what message do you want the ladies listening right now to hear then if they're feeling the same way? Like, I'm going to gain weight because I'm eating, more calories now or more food. And it's never worked before for me and I'm doomed. What do you want them to hear right now?
So this is one of the first things I hear when I start working with a new client, and I give her new macro plan, and it says, this much of this and this much of that and how many meals. It's usually a lot of hesitation, right? It says, "Oh, I gotta eat all that food." I'm like, "Yes." And then the next question is, I feel really full. I ate like this for 3 days and I feel really full and I'm really scared I'm going to gain more weight. And so my answer is every single woman goes through this transitionary period where you feel like you're eating too much, and maybe you will have a little bit of constipation the first few weeks because you're taking in more protein than usual. So you got to balance that out with water and sleep and set fiber, things like that. But everybody goes through this, and this is just part of the process. You just keep going. You don't stop here. You just keep going. And miraculously, all of a sudden, month two, month three, things start to move in the right direction, and you're feeling really good. And that gives you motivation to keep going.
Mm. Yeah, I've actually had clients say to me that they can only lose weight if they eat 1,200 calories or less. That's their only way. And so this is kind of, stuck in their head. Or I've had clients say to me that they're scared because they're not feeling hungry and they've never been on a diet or weight loss program before where they have not felt hungry. Like, a hunger that is uncomfortable. They know that they're losing weight because they feel hungry, but then they don't when they're working with me and we're not starving them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there's a difference between malnourished and being in a caloric deficit,
Hmm.
right? Because you don't necessarily have to feel hunger when you're in a caloric deficit, when you're choosing high volume, low calorie meals, or you're putting together meals that are satisfying rather than having no nutritional value, and they're not balanced, right? However, at the very end of I call it cuts and bills. I don't necessarily call them diets because the diet is all the food that we eat, no matter what it is.
Right.
I could be on a sugar diet,
Yeah.
But at the end of the cut, so once you reach your ideal weight or whatever your goal was, yeah, there might be some hunger, there for sure. It shouldn't feel uncomfortable. You shouldn't feel like you're going to pass out and faint. It shouldn't really affect your performance in the gym substantially. But there isn't less energy because you are taking in a lot less food by the time you get to the very end. And another mistake I hear from women, well, how come my first set of macros is 1,800 calories, right? Why
Hmm.
don't we start out at 1,200?
Hmm.
Because maybe it's going to take 8 months to get down to 1,200, but we don't start at 1,200.
Mm.
And if you are eating 1,200 calories a day, then that's a whole different conversation.
Mm. Yeah, so basically, you want the body to feel supported, nourished, and safe first, and then you work on changing things, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the way that I would describe it is let's say somebody comes to me and they say, help me, right? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for an audit.
Hmm.
Right? So I'm going to put my accounting hat on and I'm going to go in and I'm going to audit what has been happening. What have you been eating in the last 2 weeks? I need a full accounting. So if it goes in your mouth, it goes in the tracker, we record it. And now I have an idea of what your average daily intake is as far as calories. And I can see what the breakdown is, how much protein, how many carbs, how much fat. And once I get that average, because a lot of times what I see is yo-yoing throughout the week, right? So the week is not consistent either. Forget about macro yo-yo. I'm talking about micro yo-yoing throughout the week. So one day, 600 calories, next day, 3,000. Next day,
Hmm.
1,500, the following day, 3,500. So it's just all over the place. And when you average it out, let's say we end up with 2,000 calories, that's technically your wherever you're at. It's either your maintenance or maybe it's an overage for some people, right? Maybe they're still gaining weight. And so I take that and then I make a small reduction. So if the average intake is 2,000 calories, I'll bring it down by 10% and they'll be at 1,800 calories. That's a caloric deficit,
Hmm.
okay, of 1,400 calories a week,
Hmm.
right? So I would expect about a half a pound drop.
Mm.
If I wanted to be aggressive about it, I could do more, right? I could be in the 500 calorie deficit, and that's 3,500 calories for the week, which at that point I would expect a 1 pound drop if everything is going right.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's super helpful to understand that breakdown. Now, what about specifically the stubborn belly fat.
Stubborn belly fat. What about it?
Well, there's a few things. Number one, what is really behind it? Because I know you have expertise in hormones. So I would love to hear a little bit more about what is behind that stubborn belly fat. And then also, a lot of times women will lose weight and maybe even do it in the right way, but it's not coming off of the belly area. It might be coming off other parts of their body. So maybe you have some tips or secrets to share with us.
So technically, we cannot spot reduce where body fat comes off from. And during menopause and perimenopause, with all the hormonal shifts that take place, sometimes some women store the extra fat around their belly. And that happens in our later years, right? So menopause and postmenopause, especially, we start to see a little bit more concentration of belly fat. However, that does not mean that you cannot get rid of it.
Mm.
Now, it will require being in a caloric deficit. It might be even more challenging during perimenopause or menopause to um, lose weight, even if you are in a caloric deficit. But um, that does not mean it's impossible. I have yet to find someone who is following a plan that is intelligent and strategic that has not been able to uh, lose weight, right? It is harder. I'm not going to lie about it. It is harder, but it's not impossible.
Okay, so there's hope. We definitely want to let all the listeners know that there's absolutely hope if you're dealing with stubborn belly fat. We can get that. We can work on that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's also the type of fat that could potentially be all around your organs. Now, it depends where, again, what it looks like. What does your belly look like? Is it bloated? Is it the type of fat that's right underneath your skin, right? Do you also have some around your hips potentially and thighs? It really all depends and it's very individual. So a lot of times, there could be gut issues as well. And, what one person may be calling belly fat could be inflammation in the gut, and GI issues and things like that. And that very much could be related to perimenopause and hormonal changes and shifts and things like that. So it's so individual and so dependent on each person's health history, their current lifestyle, whether they're drinking alcohol or not. All kinds of factors play into that. So it's very hard to give generic type of advice because it's so unique to each person. And of course, so your hormones can be completely different from another person. So yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, so I know that you had mentioned that lifting weights, strength training was a really important part of this process. And so I was curious about maybe the right approach for somebody that is over 40 and is dealing with all the perimenopause symptoms. What would you suggest to them for starting a fitness, or what do you have your ladies do for fitness?
Yeah, so the first thing I'm going to say is I want to bust this idea because I hear it all the time. I'm going to burst this bubble. So if you're listening and you think that walking, swimming, and bicycling are resistance training, I'm going to hit the button that I don't have. And I'm going to say incorrect answer. Okay. Because I hear this constantly. The resistance to resistance training is big.
Yes, absolutely.
What is up with that?
I know, and I actually prefer to be lifting heavy things and feeling my muscles growing and feeling stronger than doing a treadmill or walking or biking or something. But that's just a personal preference. I know it's a huge resistance for sure.
I don't understand it. It makes me a little twingy when I hear that. Because honestly, that is what changed my life. That really did. And between that and the nutrition, and when I hear women resist it so much and tell me, well, walking is resistance training because I'm carrying my body weight, I just want to just shake them and be like, no, no, stop it. That's not resistance training, okay? Resistance training means that you progressively overload week to week, month to month, year to year, using different variables. So the variables could be how much rest time you get, how many reps you do, how many sets you do, what is the tempo of each rep. It doesn't mean, hey, today you're going to lift 10 pounds and tomorrow I expect you to lift 110 pounds. That's not going to happen. Okay. I mean,
Mm,
unless you're Popeye. I mean, that's just not going to happen, right?
mm.
And so there's a lot of fear and trepidation and just a lot of preconceived notions about what is weight training and resistance training and what is progressive overload. And women would rather leave the dollar and step over it and pick up the dime on the street and instead do other things where they feel more confident about, but they don't realize the real gold mine is in resistance training. So resistance training with progressive overload, what that means is you start where you're at, right? That could be body weight. That could be less than body weight, okay? So when I started, I could not do a pull-up even at body weight. I had to give myself assistance, okay? So I could only do less than body weight on some exercises. Some I could do with weights, like bicep curls. I absolutely started with weights. Squats, I started body weight. I couldn't add anything because I didn't know what the right form was, right? So there's a learning curve here. And I think that's where the resistance comes in. People have a lot of fear around that. And therefore, you hire a trainer. You hire a
Yes.
trainer to help you overcome all of these fears so you can have a benefit of the thing that's going to change your life. I mean, if that's all that the barrier is, you just don't know how to do it, that's an easy problem to solve, right? That's not an excuse not to do it and, you know, walk and call it resistance training. Now, by all means, still walk, right? I have nothing against walking, swimming, biking, yoga, Pilates. I mean, I run retreats doing all those things, right? But resistance training does not replace them. So I just want to bust that myth in case anyone's thinking it, because I hear it all the time, ladies. And so what I do is we start where you're at. So with clients, we figure out, okay, do you have any injuries? Do you have any modifications that we need to account for? There's lots of different variations for all kinds of things that you could work around certain areas. Like if you have sciatica, for example, that's usually mostly has to do with a weaker core. So we can work on that. If you're given the green light by your doctor that you're able to do resistance training, right? And so lots of options out there. You know, you start where you're at and then you keep progressing because your body was made to carry heavy things, ladies. Your body was designed to be strong, to carry heavy loads, to work hard. It was not designed to sit on a chair all day. And so as soon as you start doing these things, your body starts to to be happy. It starts to change. You start to feel good. You get stronger. You start to be excited about going to the gym, and then you progress. You do different things. You maybe add a little bit of weight, or maybe you do an extra rep or two on your existing set, or whatever that may be. That's all progressive overload.
I love it. I love it. And I hope that the women are hearing your message loud and clear. We need to be building and supporting our muscles and our strength.
Yes.
I am really excited to hear more about how you get women together in an in-person environment. And you had just mentioned that you do this at retreats. So tell us more about these retreats.
Absolutely. So women come from all parts of the country, from West Coast, East Coast, from the South, from the North, from all over the place. And the agenda and the schedule is generally always the same. We start with an hour and a half of yoga in the morning. That's breath work, meditation, and vinyasa yoga. We have breakfast. Then we go out for a hike. We come back, we do lunch, and then we either get spa treatments or massages, facials, whatever people are inclined to sign up for. We do a strength training fundamentals class. So people that are interested in learning the beginning lifts, right? There's four main lifts. I've actually added five. So deadlifts, squats, hip thrusts, bench, and now I've added RDLs, which are Romanian deadlifts. We do that. We go over form. So when you go home, you feel more confident in the gym, and you know what to do. And then we have dinner, we have a restorative yoga session. We spend a lot of time chatting and connecting and getting to know each other, which is really the best part, if you ask me. And we do some Pilates. We actually just added a Pilates reformer and a Peloton bike to the location, and we just enjoy each other's company and just getting to know each other. I have met some of the most incredible women on these retreats that have really blown my mind with the things that they're doing, the barriers they're busting, that they don't subscribe to the narrative. They're just living life to the fullest, and I feel really blessed and grateful to be meeting all of these women because they fire me up. The retreat is over and I go into withdrawal. I'm like, when is the next one? I am.
I mean, it sounds so supportive, so restorative, so amazing. And how do women feel compared to when they arrive, compared to the end? How do they walk away from this?
Well, the adjective I hear the most is relaxed, calm, and in like alive. They feel energized. They feel um like they have walked away with knowledge, information, and a calmer nervous system that they can take home to their family.
So I imagine then they're coming home feeling more ready to take on the world and just be better in their bodies and in their lives. I mean, it sounds like this would make a really big impact on their everyday, your mood, your attitude, and just the way you feel. So it sounds awesome.
That's a great way. I love what you said because I feel like a lot of us spend the majority of our time up in our minds, and we get disconnected from being in our body and knowing what being in our body feels like. I know because I lived that for a very long time. And the goal of each retreat is just to bring ourselves back into our body, back to embody our true self, to see and feel what that is and what that feels like, and to be able to access that in the future as well when we go home. So yeah, that's the goal.
Love that. Okay, so I want to know, how can women reach out and get more information on the retreats, get connected with you. And also, you mentioned that by the time this comes out, you have another surprise coming out for people.
Yes, so you can find me on thehouseofrose.com. So it's THE houseofrose.com. It's Thor, THOR retreats. That's where all the information is. You can also find me on Instagram. My username is How Good Can It Get? Because that's our motto. And we do. I have a surprise. We're going live with a cookbook that has been the most frequently requested feature at the retreats is all the recipes of the food. And so that will be coming out this year, most likely in the next 3 to 4 months. So if you're listening to this in November or after that, it should be on the website.
Awesome. Okay. So I want to wrap this up with hearing words from you, last words from you that you want everybody listening to really walk away from this podcast episode.
I want you to know that if you're going through perimenopause right now and things feel like they're out of control, that your personality is changing, that things are just going haywire, it is temporary. I promise you will come out of it and you're going to be so happy for it to be over because menopause, okay, is amazing. I love it. I've been there for 6 years now and I'm enjoying it. However, the caveat is to take care of our bodies as early as possible so that when we're going through this second teenagerhood kind of transition, and you know what teenagers are like, right, Lucy?
I do.
That we're prepared, right? We have the tools and our body's not depleted. So strength training, protein, sleep, hydration, very important. Be kind to yourself. Really, really let the stress go. Everything's going to be fine, even if the house is not perfectly clean and the lawn is not cut and somebody's not happy with you because you didn't drive them somewhere. It's all good. Everybody's going to be fine. Everything is going to be good. But yeah, take care of yourselves.
Amazing. That's beautiful. I think it's so important for the ladies listening to understand that no matter what you've tried already, there is still hope and there is a better way and to reach out. So thank you, Terry, so much for being here. And thank you for all the wisdom that you just shared and sharing your story and your personal history, because I think that that really shows that there is hope and that there's a chance for everybody to change. So
Thank you,
thank you.
Lucy. Thank
You're
you. I appreciate it.